"Get your hands off me." Naomi Brooks did not shout. She did not struggle. But the calm in her voice cut through the first-class cabin of Sterling Air Flight 482 harder than any alarm. Every head turned. Every conversation died. Officer Brett Collins stood in the aisle beside seat 1A, one hand hovering near Naomi's arm, his face set in the kind of certainty that comes from believing no one in the room will challenge you. Across from him, Claire Whitman, Sterling Air's senior flight attendant, held Naomi's boarding pass between two fingers as if it were something she did not want to touch. "Ma'am," Claire said, loud enough for the whole cabin to hear, "you were asked to leave this seat." Naomi looked up at her slowly. She wore a plain charcoal sweater, dark jeans, and clean white sneakers. No designer logo. No jewelry that flashed under the cabin lights. No assistant trailing behind her. Just a small leather carry-on beneath the seat and a black phone resting in her hand. She did not look like the woman who had spent the last 18 months negotiating the largest private investment package in Sterling Air's history. And that was exactly why Claire had made the mistake. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Naomi. Flight 482 was scheduled to leave Atlanta for Los Angeles at 6:40 p.m. The cabin smelled like coffee, leather, and the faint metallic chill of recycled air. Outside the window, rain streaked across the runway lights. Inside, the first-class cabin was full of polished shoes, expensive watches, and people who had learned to look important without saying a word. Naomi had boarded early, scanned her ticket, and taken her assigned seat without a problem. Seat 1A. Window. First class. Paid in full. Then Martin and Elise Crawford arrived. Martin wore a navy suit and a silver watch. Elise carried a cream-colored handbag with a gold clasp. They stopped beside Naomi's row, and Claire's smile appeared instantly. "Mr. and Mrs. Crawford," she said warmly, "we've been expecting you." Then Claire looked at Naomi. The smile vanished. "There seems to be a seating issue." Naomi held out her boarding pass. "There isn't." Claire glanced at it for less than a second. "This seat has been reassigned." "By whom?" Naomi asked. Claire folded her arms. "By the airline." Naomi's eyes moved toward the seat number above her. 1A, then back to Claire. "My name is on the manifest." "That may be," Claire replied, her voice tightening. "But first class is reserved for priority passengers." A few people nearby looked up. Martin Crawford said nothing, but his expression suggested he had already decided the seat belonged to him. Naomi stayed still. "Run my name," she said. Claire gave a short laugh. "I already did." But she had not. Maya Jenkins, a young trainee flight attendant standing near the galley, had seen the screen. Naomi Brooks. Seat 1A. Confirmed. Priority clearance. Yet Maya said nothing. "Not yet." Claire leaned closer. "Ma'am, don't make this difficult." Naomi looked at the woman standing over her, then at the security officer waiting in the aisle. Her voice remained low. "You're about to make a decision that will cost this airline more than you understand." Claire smiled as if she had heard a threat from someone who had no power at all. "No," she said. "You are." Claire Whitman's smile did not move, but something behind it hardened. She turned toward Officer Brett Collins and gave the smallest nod. It was not dramatic. It was worse than dramatic. It was practiced. Brett stepped closer to Naomi's row, his navy security jacket brushing the edge of the aisle seat. "Ma'am, I need you to gather your things and come with me," he said. Naomi looked past him toward the front of the cabin, where the cockpit door remained closed and the soft chime of boarding continued behind the curtain. "On what grounds?" she asked. Brett glanced at Claire before answering. "You are refusing crew instructions." "I asked a question," Naomi said. "That is not refusal." Claire held up the boarding pass. "This document is no longer valid for this seat." Naomi's gaze settled on the torn edge of the paper between Claire's fingers. "You did not reassign my seat," she said. "You decided I did not belong in it." Martin Crawford shifted beside the row, clearly impatient now. "Are we going to be delayed because of this?" he asked. Claire turned toward him with a softer voice. "We are handling it, sir." That one word landed differently. "Sir." Naomi had not been called ma'am with respect. She had been called ma'am like a warning. Maya Jenkins stood near the galley, frozen beside a cart of bottled water. Her eyes kept moving between Naomi, the tablet in Claire's hand, and the passenger manifest glowing on the screen. She had checked it twice. Naomi Brooks was not only confirmed for seat 1A. Her profile carried a gold internal tag Maya had never seen before. Executive partner. Board authorization. Maya swallowed hard. Claire, she said quietly, maybe we should verify with operations. Claire turned so sharply that Maya stopped speaking. I already verified it. The lie sat in the cabin like smoke. Ethan Cole, seated in row 3, lowered his phone from chest level and looked directly at Claire. Did you? He asked. Claire's eyes narrowed. Sir, this does not concern you. Ethan leaned back, but he did not put his phone away. It concerns everyone when security gets called over a seat. A murmur moved through the cabin. Not loud. Not yet. Naomi reached beneath the seat and lifted her small leather carry-on into her lap. She did not pack in a hurry. She folded the handle down, checked that her phone was inside her palm, and stood with the same quiet precision she had used in boardrooms where men twice her age had tried to speak over her. Claire stepped aside, satisfied too early. Thank you, she said. Naomi looked at her. You should not thank me. Brett motioned toward the exit. This way. As Naomi moved into the aisle, Elise Crawford slid into seat 1A with a relieved sigh, as though the seat had been waiting for her all along. She placed her handbag by the window and avoided Naomi's eyes. Naomi paused beside the row. Enjoy the view, she said softly. Martin gave a dismissive laugh. You should be grateful they did not remove you from the flight. Naomi turned her head just enough to look at him. You think this is about a flight? Her voice was calm, but it carried through the cabin. No, she continued. This is about what people reveal when they think no one important is watching. Claire crossed her arms. Keep moving. Naomi did. But as she reached the front of the cabin, her phone vibrated once in her hand. A message from Angela Reed, her chief of staff, appeared on the screen. Boarding status confirmed. Sterling board meeting begins in 40 minutes. Naomi read it without changing expression. Then she typed one short reply. Keep everyone available. We may be starting early. The moment Naomi stepped past the first-class curtain, the cabin behind her seemed to exhale. Claire Whitman returned Martin Crawford's boarding pass with a polished smile, and Martin settled deeper into seat 1A, as if he had won something. But Naomi did not walk toward the terminal gate. She stopped in the narrow space beside the aircraft door, where the rain-streaked windows reflected the blue runway lights across the polished floor. Officer Brett Collins stood a few feet away, watching her with the guarded patience of someone expecting anger. He did not get it. Naomi placed her carry-on beside her ankle and looked at the phone in her hand. Angela Reed answered on the first ring. Naomi, Angela said, her voice calm but alert. I saw your message. Are you all right? Naomi watched a baggage cart roll slowly beneath the wing outside. I am fine, she said. But Sterling Air is not. There was a pause on the line. Angela knew that tone. It was the tone Naomi used before an acquisition changed hands, before a chief executive learned their board had stopped believing in them, before a contract worth billions became a lesson in consequences. Tell me what happened, Angela said. Naomi's eyes moved toward the cabin curtain. A senior flight attendant removed me from my assigned first-class seat. Security escorted me off the aircraft. They gave the seat to another passenger without verifying the manifest. Angela did not interrupt. Was anyone recording? At least one passenger, Naomi said. And a trainee saw the system. Angela's voice lowered. Do you want legal involved? Naomi looked down at her. Boarding pass. Claire had bent it sharply down the middle. A small crease ran through Naomi's name. For a second, she remembered another airport. She was 12 years old, standing beside her mother at a gate in Detroit with a pink backpack and a paper ticket clutched in both hands. Her mother had been dressed in a gray business suit, tired from a long work trip, but a gate agent had looked at her and asked 3 times whether she was in the correct line. White travelers passed through with barely a glance. Naomi remembered her mother's face more than the words. Not anger, not embarrassment, just a silence that had seemed too heavy for one person to carry. Her mother had squeezed Naomi's hand and whispered, They do not get to tell us who we are. Naomi had carried that sentence for 30 years. Now she looked through the small window in the aircraft door and saw Claire laughing softly with Martin Crawford. Yes, Naomi said. Bring in legal. Bring in the board secretary. And notify Sterling's chief financial officer that I am suspending the funding vote until further notice. Angela inhaled once. The $5 billion bridge package. Every dollar of it, Naomi said. Pause the transfer. Freeze the guarantee. No extensions. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere beyond the runway. Inside the cabin, the boarding door remained open. Maya Jenkins appeared at the edge of the curtain, her face pale and uncertain. She looked back over her shoulder before stepping closer. Ms. Brooks, she said quietly. Naomi turned. Maya held a tablet against her chest. I need to tell you something. Your seat was valid. I saw it in the system. Claire never checked with operations. She just changed the screen after Mr. Crawford complained. Naomi studied the young woman's trembling hands. Are you willing to say that when it matters? Maya looked toward the cabin, where Claire's voice carried above the low murmur of passengers. Then Maya looked back at Naomi. Her fear did not disappear, but her spine straightened. Yes, she said. Naomi picked up her carry-on. Her phone vibrated again. Angela's message was brief. Board members notified. Chief Financial Officer requesting emergency. Call. Naomi slipped the phone into her hand and faced the aircraft door. Good, she said. Tell them not to call me yet. Maya blinked. Why not? Naomi's expression did not change. Because the people inside still think they are in control. Claire Whitman had almost returned to her station when Maya stepped into the aisle behind her. The young trainee kept her voice low, but it carried just far enough. Claire, I need to speak with you. Claire turned, already irritated. Not now. It is about seat 1A. The name of the seat changed the air around them. Martin Crawford looked up from the window. Elise Crawford stopped adjusting the cream-colored blanket across her lap. Claire's expression tightened, but only for a moment. The matter has been resolved, she said. Maya held the tablet closer. It was not resolved correctly. Claire took one step toward her. Maya, you are new here. You do not understand how these situations work. I understand what I saw, Maya replied. Her voice shook, but it did not disappear. Ms. Brooks had a valid boarding pass. Her name was on the manifest. Her profile had executive authorization. A few passengers leaned into the aisle. Ethan Cole, still seated in row 3, lowered his phone just enough to make it clear he was listening. Claire's eyes flashed toward him. Sir, recording crew members is against airline policy. Ethan looked at the phone in his hand. Then maybe the crew should follow policy too. The cabin went quiet again. Claire reached for Maya's tablet. Give me that. Maya did not hand it over. I already saved the original screen. That was when Captain Richard Hale appeared from the cockpit corridor. He was tall, silver-haired, and dressed in a crisp navy uniform that seemed built to command a room. He looked from Claire to Maya, then toward the open aircraft door. What is the delay? Claire answered before anyone else could speak. A passenger refused a crew reassignment. Security handled it. Captain Hale's eyes narrowed. The passenger from 1A? Maya stepped forward. Captain, her seat was valid. She was removed without verification. Claire let out a sharp breath. She is confused. No, Maya said. I am. Not. Captain Hale looked at Maya for a long second. Then he looked toward the front door, where Naomi stood beyond the curtain with her carry-on beside her. Naomi had not left the aircraft. She was still there, still watching, still calm. Captain Hale walked toward her, his shoes striking the floor with measured authority. Ma'am, he said, I understand there has been a misunderstanding. Naomi's eyes remained steady. There has been a decision. Our crew acted based on the information available. Your crew acted based on what they assumed when they looked at me. Captain Hale glanced at Officer Brett Collins. Brett shifted his stance, but said nothing. Naomi continued. You did not ask for verification. You did not ask why my seat carried priority clearance. You did not ask why I was flying alone. You decided the answer before you opened your mouth. Captain Hale's jaw tightened. I am willing to find you another seat. Naomi gave him a small, almost sad look. You think this is about a seat. Behind him, Martin Crawford stood from 1A. Captain, we have been waiting long enough. Can we close the door and leave? Captain Hale turned toward him immediately. Of course, sir. Naomi watched that exchange without blinking. Then her phone lit up in her hand. Angela Reed was calling. Naomi answered, placed the phone to her ear, and said only one sentence. Angela, begin the withdrawal. Captain Hale turned back. Withdrawal of what? Naomi looked at him. The rain outside had grown heavier, drumming softly against the aircraft windows. The money keeping this airline in the air, she said. For the first time, Captain Richard Hale did not have an answer ready. The cabin lights hummed above them. Rain pressed against the windows in silver lines. Somewhere behind the curtain, a child laughed softly in the main cabin, unaware that the future of Sterling Air had just shifted by a single sentence. Claire Whitman stared at Naomi as if the words had been spoken in another language. "What money?" she asked. Naomi did not look at her. Angela Reed's voice came through the phone, clear and controlled. "The emergency bridge package is paused. The $5 billion transfer has been placed on hold. The guarantee letters are being withdrawn from review. Sterling's chief financial officer is requesting confirmation." Naomi watched Captain Hale's face change by degrees. Confusion first, then recognition, then something closer to fear. "Confirm it," Naomi said, "and send the incident report to every voting member of the board." Angela paused, "Including the video evidence." Naomi looked toward Ethan Cole. He had risen from row 3, his phone still in his hand. "Yes," Naomi said. "Everything." Captain Hale stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Ms. Brooks, I think we need to move this conversation somewhere private." Naomi finally turned toward him. "Private is what people ask for when they realize the truth will embarrass them." Claire tried to regain her authority. "This is absurd. We had no way of knowing who she was." Naomi's expression remained still. "That is the point." The words landed hard. Maya stood beside the galley, holding the tablet with both hands. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady now. "She should not have needed to be anyone important for you to treat her with respect." No one spoke after that. Even Martin Crawford looked away. The seat beneath him no longer seemed comfortable. Captain Hale glanced toward the cockpit, then back at Naomi. "Sterling Air values every passenger." Naomi gave a quiet breath that was not quite a laugh. "No. Sterling Air values appearances. You valued Mr. Crawford because of his suit. You valued Claire because of her uniform. You valued Officer Collins because he carried authority. And you looked at me in a sweater and jeans and decided I was the problem." Officer Brett Collins shifted near the door. "I was following instructions." Naomi nodded once. "That is what people say when they want to borrow someone else's judgment." His eyes dropped to the floor. Ethan stepped into the aisle, no longer trying to hide his phone. "I recorded the whole thing," he said. "Claire said first class was not for people like her." "Captain, you should hear it." Claire spun toward him. "You are taking that out of context." Ethan's face hardened. There was no context that made it acceptable. The cabin began to murmur again, louder now. A woman in row 2 said, "I heard it too." A man near the window added, "She showed her ticket." Then another voice came from behind the curtain. "They never checked it." The silence that followed was different from before. It was no longer the silence of people watching someone be treated unfairly. It was the silence of people deciding they had seen enough. Naomi's phone vibrated again. Angela had sent a message from Sterling's corporate office. Emergency board call moved up. Chief Financial Officer confirms the airline cannot finalize its fuel and fleet obligations without the bridge package. Naomi read the message once, then slipped the phone into her hand. Captain Hale saw the screen. "You are really doing this over a seat?" Naomi looked at him with a calm that made the question sound small. "No," she said. "I am doing this because you showed me what happens to people you think cannot fight back." Captain Hale looked toward the cockpit again, but the cockpit no longer offered him shelter. The intercom above the galley clicked softly as the ground crew requested an update. Claire Whitman reached for it first. "We are handling a passenger matter," she said, trying to keep her voice smooth. But her hand trembled against the receiver. Naomi watched without moving. Her carry-on stood beside her. Her boarding pass remained folded in her hand, the crease through her name sharp beneath the cabin lights. It was a small thing. A piece of paper bent by someone who believed they could bend the person holding it. Angela Reed returned to the line. "Naomi, Sterling's chief financial officer has confirmed that the bridge package was scheduled to clear at 8 o'clock tonight. Without it, their leasing partners will not release the aircraft reserve funds. Their fuel credit review will also be delayed." Naomi's eyes stayed on Captain Hale. "Put that in writing." "Already done," Angela said. "The board secretary has called an emergency session. They are asking whether this is a negotiation." Naomi's voice was quiet. "Tell them it is an audit." Claire stepped forward, her confidence thinning at the edges. "Ms. Brooks, if there was a misunderstanding, we can correct it. We can put you back in your seat." Naomi looked at seat 1A. Martin Crawford was still standing beside it now, one hand resting on the overhead bin, his earlier impatience replaced by a tight, uneasy silence. Elise had moved into the aisle, clutching her handbag against her side. Neither of them looked like they wanted the seat anymore. "You cannot put me back where you decided I did not belong," Naomi said. Claire swallowed. "I did not mean it that way. You meant it exactly the way you said it." Maya stepped forward with the tablet. "There is more," she said. Her voice was stronger than before. Claire changed the seat record after Mr. Crawford asked for 1A. She did not call operations. She did not request a voluntary swap. She changed Ms. Brooks's status to unresolved passenger. Captain Hale stared at Claire. "Is that true?" Claire's face lost color. "I was trying to avoid a delay." "By removing a confirmed passenger?" Maya asked. Claire looked at her sharply. "You do not understand the pressure of this job." Maya's shoulders rose with a breath. "I understand pressure. I do not understand why you thought it was acceptable to make her pay for it." Ethan's phone remained raised. The red recording light was small, but it had become impossible to ignore. Captain Hale turned toward Officer Collins. "Brett, did you verify her identity before escorting her forward?" Brett's mouth opened, then closed. "Claire told me the ticket was invalid." "That was not my question," Captain Hale said. Brett looked at Naomi. "No, sir. I did not." The words moved through the cabin like a door opening. Passengers who had stayed silent began to speak. A woman in row 2 said, "He never asked her anything." A man near the aisle said, "She was calm the whole time." Martin Crawford finally looked at Naomi. "I did not know they were going to remove you," he said. Naomi met his eyes. "But you knew the seat was mine." He had no answer. Her phone vibrated once more. Angela's message appeared across the screen. "Sterling Operations has begun holding departures pending financial review." Naomi read it, then looked at the crew around her. "This is not happening because I am angry," she said. "It is happening because an airline that cannot recognize dignity cannot be trusted with power." The message on Naomi's phone did not make a sound, but it changed the room. "Sterling Operations has begun holding departures pending financial review." She read it once, then placed the phone face down in her palm. Captain Hale noticed the shift in her expression. "What does that mean?" he asked. Naomi looked past him through the open aircraft door. Beyond the jet bridge, the terminal glowed under the evening lights. Gates stretched down the concourse like a row of promises, each one built on schedules, trust, and the assumption that tomorrow would arrive on time. "It means your company is discovering that consequences move faster than airplanes," she said. Claire Whitman stepped back toward the galley, but there was nowhere left to hide. Her uniform still looked perfect. Her hair was still in place. Yet the authority she had worn so easily minutes earlier had begun to fall away. "You are trying to punish everyone because of one mistake," she said. Naomi turned toward her. "No, I am responding to a pattern." Claire's lips tightened. "You do not know anything about me. I know what you did when you thought no one would stop you." Naomi lifted her phone and opened the incident file Angela had sent. It contained the time-stamped manifest, Maya's saved screen, Ethan's recording, and 3 customer complaints filed against Sterling Air in the past 6 months. Each complaint described a different airport. Each complaint described a black passenger questioned over a valid seat, a valid upgrade, or a valid boarding pass. Each complaint had been marked resolved. Naomi's eyes moved across the screen. "You call it a mistake because that word is smaller than the truth." Captain Hale reached for the phone, then stopped himself. "Those complaints are handled by corporate. Corporate answers to a board," Naomi said. "And the board is about to answer to me." The cockpit door opened behind him. The first officer, Daniel Mercer, stepped out with a tablet in hand. He looked unsettled. "Captain, dispatch is asking why we have not pushed back. They also said 2 other Sterling flights at this airport have been paused." A ripple of voices moved through the cabin. Passengers checked their phones. Martin Crawford stared at the screen in his hand, then looked toward Naomi with a new kind of attention. "Other flights?" he asked. Naomi did not answer him. Her phone began ringing again. This time the caller identification showed Sterling Air Board Secretary. Captain Hale saw the name. Claire saw it too. Even Brett Collins leaned forward slightly. Naomi answered. "This is Naomi Brooks." The voice on the other end was urgent but formal. "Ms. Brooks, the board has convened. The chief financial officer has confirmed the withdrawal. We are asking you to reconsider before this becomes public." Naomi looked at Ethan's raised phone, then at Maya, standing straighter now than she had when the flight began. Then at Claire, who could no longer meet her eyes. "It is already public," Naomi said. "The only question is whether your board wants to hear the truth from me or from the people you failed." The board's secretary went quiet. Naomi continued, her voice low and exact. "I want every passenger complaint involving profiling reviewed. I want the crew removed from duty pending investigation. And I want the full recording preserved before anyone in corporate decides it is easier to erase a black woman than to fix a broken culture." Captain Hale's face went pale. Claire whispered, "You cannot do that." Naomi ended the call and looked directly at her. "I already did." Claire Whitman stared at Naomi as though the cabin floor had shifted beneath her feet. "You cannot do that," she had said, but the words sounded smaller now. Naomi did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "I already did." Outside the aircraft, the rain had slowed to a fine gray mist, but inside the cabin the pressure kept building. A notification appeared on Martin Crawford's phone. Then another appeared on Ethan Cole's. Passengers began reading the same alert from Sterling Air's travel application. Due to an operational review, select departures may be delayed. Martin looked toward Captain Hale. "What operational review?" Captain Hale did not answer. His radio crackled at his belt. A dispatcher's voice came through, clipped and urgent. "Captain Hale, remain at gate. Repeat, remain at gate. Corporate has placed Flight 482 under review." Claire's face drained of color. "Under review for what?" Brett Collins looked toward the open door, then toward Naomi. "This is getting out of hand," he said. Naomi met his eyes. "It got out of hand when you decided my dignity was less important than your instructions." Brett looked down. For the first time, he seemed to understand that following an order did not erase the choice to stop and ask whether it was right. Maya stepped beside Naomi, tablet still held against her chest. "There is another complaint," she said. Her finger moved across the screen. "It was filed 3 weeks ago in Dallas. A black father was questioned because he used points to upgrade his family to first class. The report says the crew called security before they checked the reservation." Claire turned sharply. "Why are you reading that?" Maya did not flinch. "Because it matters." Naomi watched the young trainee, and something in her expression softened. Courage rarely arrived looking fearless. Sometimes it arrived with shaking hands and a voice that refused to disappear. Naomi remembered her mother at the Detroit airport, standing beneath fluorescent lights while strangers examined a ticket that had always been valid. Her mother had been tired. Naomi had been 12. And neither of them had known that the memory would follow Naomi into every boardroom she entered, every hotel lobby she crossed, every private terminal where someone looked at her clothes before they looked at her name. She had built Brooks Global Capital because she understood what it meant to be underestimated. She had invested in Sterling Air because she believed companies could be repaired when they were willing to tell the truth. But repair required honesty. And honesty had just walked into first class wearing a charcoal sweater and dark jeans. Naomi's phone rang again. Angela Reed's voice came through without greeting. "Naomi, the board has voted to suspend the bridge package pending an independent investigation. The chief financial officer says the airline will need to hold additional flights tonight." Naomi closed her eyes for one brief second. Not from satisfaction. From clarity. "Make sure the employees are protected," she said. "Ground crews, gate agents, call center staff. This is not their failure." Angela's voice softened. "Understood." Captain Hale heard every word. His posture changed. "You are still thinking about the staff?" Naomi looked at him. "I am thinking about the people who will pay for leaders who confuse authority with character." Then she turned toward Claire. "You had a choice. You could have checked the manifest. You could have listened to Maya. You could have treated me like a human being before you knew my name." Claire's eyes filled, but Naomi did not look away. "Instead, you chose the version of me that made you feel powerful." The cabin remained silent. Then Ethan lowered his phone and said, "She is right." One by one, passengers began to nod. The nods began quietly. A woman in row 2 lowered her newspaper and said, "She showed her ticket." A man near the window answered, "And they never checked it." Then the voices joined together, not loud enough to become chaos, but clear enough to change the balance of the cabin. Claire Whitman stood near the galley with her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She had spent years mastering the polished language of airline service. Calm voice, straight posture, controlled smile. But none of it could protect her now. Not when every person around her had watched the same truth unfold. Captain Richard Hale pressed a hand to his radio. "Dispatch, this is Flight 482. We need corporate guidance." The response came back almost immediately. "Captain, corporate has directed that no crew member involved in the incident is to continue operational duties until further notice. Please remain at the gate." Captain Hale went still. Claire looked at him. "They cannot remove us based on a video." Naomi's gaze did not move. "They are not removing you based on a video. They are removing you because the video showed what you did." Officer Brett Collins stepped away from the aircraft door. His badge caught the cabin light as he looked at Naomi. "Ms. Brooks, I owe you an apology." Naomi studied him for a moment. "An apology matters when it comes with accountability." Brett nodded slowly. "I should have verified your boarding pass. I should have asked questions." "Yes," Naomi said. "You should have." There was no cruelty in her voice. That made the words heavier. Brett took a breath. "I saw a black woman being treated like a problem, and I let someone else tell me that was enough." Naomi's expression softened only slightly. "Then remember this moment the next time someone asks you to remove a person before they ask you to understand them." Brett lowered his head. Across the aisle, Martin Crawford stepped away from seat 1A. He looked at the empty chair, then at Naomi. "I should not have accepted that seat," he said. Elise stood beside him, silent and pale. Martin swallowed. "I told myself it was the crew's decision, but I knew what was happening." Naomi nodded once. "Knowing and doing nothing are not the same as innocence." Martin did not argue. The words found their place. Maya's tablet chimed. She looked down, then up at Naomi. "Corporate sent a notice. The board has appointed an outside investigator. They are reviewing all of the complaints." Naomi held out her hand. Maya gave her the tablet. On the screen, a message from Sterling Air's board secretary appeared in bold letters. "Effective immediately, the $5 billion financing agreement is suspended pending independent review. Additional departures are being held while the company assesses its financial obligations." Naomi handed the tablet back. The cabin seemed to understand the scale of it then. Not just one delayed flight. Not just one crew under review. An entire airline forced to stop and face the cost of what it had allowed. Captain Hale looked toward the cockpit door, then at Naomi. "What do you want from us?" he asked. Naomi's answer came without hesitation. "I want you to stop calling this a misunderstanding." She picked up her carry-on and stood beside the open door. "A misunderstanding is when people do not have enough information. You had my ticket. You had my name. You had a trainee telling you the truth. What you did was choose not to see me." Her phone vibrated in her hand. Angela Reed had sent one final message. "Board meeting live in 5 minutes." Naomi read it, then looked at the crew one last time. "Now," she said, "you are going to see what it costs when an airline mistakes silence for permission." Naomi stepped through the aircraft door and into the jet bridge, but she did not walk away. She stopped beneath the white overhead lights where the sound of rain faded into the steady hum of the terminal. Behind her, Flight 482 remained open at the gate. No one moved toward departure. No one gave another instruction. The entire aircraft seemed to be waiting for the next sentence from the woman they had tried to remove. Angela Reed called again. Naomi answered and placed the phone against her ear. "The board is live," Angela said. "The chief financial officer, general counsel, and every independent director are on the call." Naomi looked through the open door at Captain Hale, Claire Whitman, Brett Collins, Maya Jenkins, and the passengers watching from their seats. "Put them on speaker," she said. A moment later, a man's voice came through the phone. "Ms. Brooks, this is Harold Benton, chair of the Sterling Air Board. We are deeply concerned about what occurred tonight." Naomi's eyes remained on the cabin. "Concern is not a response," she said. "Facts are." Harold Benton went quiet. Naomi continued. "At 6:48 this evening, I boarded Flight 482 with a valid first-class boarding pass. At 6:53, a senior flight attendant decided my seat belonged to someone else. At 6:56, security was called before anyone verified the manifest. At 7 o'clock, I was escorted from my assigned seat while passengers watched." Her voice was even. Each time landed with the precision of a record being entered into evidence. "And at 7:03, your company learned that the passenger it treated as disposable was the chief executive officer of Brooks Global Capital, the firm responsible for the $5 billion bridge package Sterling Air was depending on tonight. A sharp breath moved through the cabin. Martin Crawford looked down at the floor. Claire closed her eyes. Captain Hale stood motionless near the cockpit corridor. Harold Benton spoke again, more carefully now. Ms. Brooks, we were not aware that you were traveling on this flight. Naomi's expression did not change. That is the problem. You should not have needed to know who I was. Maya stood at the aircraft door, listening to every word. Naomi saw her and continued. Your trainee knew my seat was valid. She spoke up. Your crew ignored her. Your security officer followed an accusation instead of a fact. Your captain chose convenience over verification. This is not one person's failure. It is a culture that taught people to treat bias like procedure. The board chair said, we will conduct a full investigation. You will do more than that, Naomi replied. You will preserve every recording. You will retain an independent civil rights firm. You will review every complaint involving passenger profiling from the last 3 years. And you will protect every employee who tells the truth. Angela's voice came softly through the speaker. The financing documents are ready for your final instruction. Naomi looked at the airplane one more time. The seat that had been taken from her was visible through the cabin. Empty now? Untouchable. Withdraw the $5 billion package, Naomi said. Remove Brooks Global Capital from all pending financing discussions. Suspend every guarantee until the investigation is complete. The board chair began to speak, but Naomi stopped him with one calm sentence. You did not lose this funding because I was offended. You lost it because your airline showed me that its promises of respect were worth less than a first-class seat. For a moment, nobody spoke. The words from Naomi's phone remained in the jet bridge like a door closing. Withdraw the $5 billion package. Remove Brooks Global Capital from all pending financing discussions. The Sterling Air Board chair did not argue again. He could not. The decision had already moved beyond the call, beyond the gate, beyond the small circle of people who had believed they controlled the evening. Inside the aircraft, passengers began receiving new alerts. Sterling Air flights delayed. Sterling Air departures under operational review. Sterling Air shares under pressure in after-hours trading. The messages appeared one after another, bright against dark phone screens. Martin Crawford read his notification twice. Then he looked through the open door at Naomi. $5 billion, he said quietly. It was not a question. Naomi did not answer. The number was never the point. It was only the price of a system learning that its choices had weight. Claire Whitman stood near the galley with both hands pressed together. Her voice was barely audible. I did not know. Naomi turned toward her. You did not want to know. Claire looked down. I thought you were trying to take something that was not yours. Naomi held up the creased boarding pass. You saw a black woman in a simple sweater. You saw one seat. You made a story about me before you heard a single fact. Claire's eyes filled, but Naomi's voice remained steady. That is how discrimination survives. Not always through shouting. Sometimes through assumptions that people call professionalism. Captain Richard Hale stepped forward from the cockpit corridor. The authority in his posture was gone. He looked older now, not because of the gray in his hair, but because the certainty had left his face. Ms. Brooks, he said, I failed you as captain of this flight. Naomi looked at him. You failed more than me. Captain Hale nodded. You are right. He glanced at Maya Jenkins. She tried to tell us the truth. I dismissed her. Maya stood still, her tablet resting at her side. Naomi reached for Maya's hand and gave it a brief, firm squeeze. You did not dismiss yourself, Naomi said. Remember that. Maya's breath caught. Then she nodded. Officer Brett Collins removed his security badge from the front of his jacket and looked at it for a long moment. I have worked airport security for 12 years, he said. I tell myself I protect people. Naomi's eyes met his. Then protect them when it is inconvenient. That is when it matters. Brett closed his hand around the badge. In the cabin, Ethan Cole stepped toward the doorway. The video is already spreading, he said. People are asking what happened. Naomi gave him a calm look. Tell them the truth. Not just about me. Tell them what everyone saw. Ethan nodded and lowered his phone. He had expected a spectacle. Instead, he had witnessed something more difficult to ignore. A woman had been treated as if she did not belong. Then she had refused to become small enough to make everyone else comfortable. Angela Reed returned to the line. Naomi, the board has issued an immediate directive. Claire Whitman, Captain Hale, and Officer Collins are suspended pending investigation. They have also asked for Maya's statement. Claire's face tightened. Captain Hale closed his eyes briefly. Brett did not move. Naomi listened without triumph. "Make sure Maya has independent representation," she said. "And make sure no one pressures her to soften the truth." Angela answered, "Already arranged." Naomi ended the call. Then she looked at the open aircraft door, at the passengers, at the crew, and at the empty first-class seat. "This was never about getting my seat back," she said. "It was about making sure the next person does not have to prove they deserve one." The gate remained still for several more minutes. Flight 482 was no longer a flight. It was evidence. The cabin door stayed open, the jet bridge lights stayed bright, and the passengers who had expected to be halfway to Los Angeles sat quietly with their phones in their hands. No one complained about the delay now, not after they understood what had caused it. Naomi Brooks stood near the doorway with her carry-on at her side, watching the terminal staff gather at a respectful distance. A new gate supervisor arrived with 2 corporate representatives, both dressed in dark suits and carrying tablets. They stopped when they saw Naomi. One of them, a woman with a Sterling Air badge, stepped forward. "Ms. Brooks, I am Dana Miller from Corporate Operations. I have been directed to ensure you receive any assistance you need." Naomi looked at the woman's badge, then at the cabin behind her. "Start by ensuring the passengers receive clear information and rebooking options," she said. "They did not create this problem." Dana nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am. And make sure the gate. Agents are not blamed for a decision made above them." Dana paused, then nodded again. Naomi had seen enough companies protect the people with titles while leaving everyone else to carry the consequences. She would not allow that here. Maya Jenkins stepped out into the jet bridge, still holding the tablet. Her trainee badge looked small against her uniform, but she did not look small anymore. "They asked me to give a statement," she said. Naomi turned toward her. "Tell it exactly as it happened." Maya looked back at the cabin. "What if they say I caused the delay?" "You did not cause the delay," Naomi said. "You stopped the lie from becoming routine." Maya's eyes filled, but she smiled through it. "I was scared." Naomi nodded. "Courage does not mean you were not scared. It means fear did not get the final word." Behind them, Captain Hale walked slowly toward the aircraft door. A corporate representative had asked him to surrender his flight materials and remain available for investigators. He stopped a few feet from Naomi. Claire Whitman stood farther back, silent beside the galley. Officer Brett Collins waited near the gate entrance, his security badge no longer clipped to his jacket. Captain Hale looked at Naomi with a face stripped of every excuse. "I spent 25 years believing that being captain meant keeping control," he said. "Tonight, I learned that control without fairness is just another kind of failure." Naomi listened. "What you do next matters more than what you say now," she replied. He nodded once. "I understand." Martin Crawford and Elise stepped into the jet bridge with their bags. Martin did not look toward seat 1A. He looked at Naomi. "I will provide a statement too," he said. "I saw the crew take your seat. I benefited from it." Naomi gave him a brief nod. It was not forgiveness. It was acknowledgement. Sometimes accountability began with people admitting they had been comfortable while someone else was being pushed aside. Ethan Cole followed behind them, his phone lowered now. "Your story is everywhere," he said. Naomi shook her head gently. "It is not just my story." She looked toward Maya, then toward the passengers leaving the cabin one by one. "It belongs to every person who has been judged before they were heard." Her phone vibrated. Angela Reed had sent the final update. Sterling Air had grounded additional departures while its board met with lenders, regulators, and legal counsel. The $5 billion package was gone. Naomi read the message, then placed her phone in her pocket. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She simply looked back at the aircraft that had tried to leave without her. "A company can recover from a delayed flight," she said, "but it cannot recover from its values until it admits what they are." By 9:15 that night, the rain had stopped over Atlanta, but Sterling Air was still standing still. Across the terminal, departure boards changed one line at a time. Delayed. Held. Awaiting further instruction. The words glowed in amber above crowded gates, and every new update carried the same message. A company built on schedules had been forced to confront something it could no longer schedule around. Naomi Brooks stood near the terminal windows with Angela Reed on speakerphone. Beyond the glass, Flight 482 remained at the gate, its cabin lights glowing against the dark runway. "The board has accepted the independent investigation," Angela said. They have also approved immediate review of all passenger discrimination complaints, crew training procedures, and security escalation protocols. Naomi watched a plane taxi slowly in the distance. Good, she said. And the employees? Protected under the whistleblower directive. Maya has counsel. The gate team has been cleared of responsibility. Corporate has issued rebooking and hotel support for every delayed passenger. Naomi nodded once. That mattered. Justice was not supposed to fall hardest on the people with the least power. It was supposed to reach the people who had used power carelessly. Maya approached with a small overnight bag over one shoulder. Her shift was over, but she had stayed until every statement was collected. She looked tired now. Not defeated. Just changed. They asked if I want to continue training, Maya said. Naomi turned toward her. What did you tell them? Maya looked through the glass. At the aircraft. I told them I want to help make sure this never happens again. Naomi smiled, small but real. Then you already understand what leadership is. A few feet away, Ethan Cole finished speaking with a reporter on his phone. He had sent the video to the airline, to the board, and to the public. But he had not turned the moment into a spectacle. He had let the facts speak. Martin Crawford and Elise waited near the rebooking desk, quieter than they had been when they boarded. Captain Hale, Claire Whitman, and Brett Collins had left separately with corporate investigators. Their futures would be decided by evidence, not by the comfort of their explanations. Naomi did not need to watch them go. She had spent too many years learning that real power was not standing over someone after they fell. It was building a system where fewer people were pushed down in the first place. Her phone buzzed with a final message from Angela. Sterling Air confirms the bridge package has been fully withdrawn. Additional flights remain grounded pending financial review. Naomi looked at the words, then slipped the phone into her pocket. The $5 billion had never been revenge. It was leverage. And leverage, in the right hands, could force a door open that had been closed for generations. Maya looked at her. Do you think they will change? Naomi considered the question. The terminal was quieter now. Passengers rolled suitcases toward new gates. Gate agents offered directions. Somewhere, a child pressed both hands against the window and watched the runway lights blink in the dark. They can, Naomi said. But change begins when people stop asking who deserves respect. She picked up her carry-on and started toward the terminal exit. Then she paused and looked back at Flight 4821 last time. They thought they were removing a passenger, she said. What they removed was the illusion that their choices had no cost. And with that, Naomi walked away, not as a woman who had won a seat, but as a woman who had made an entire airline hear the truth it had spent too long refusing to see.